Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. Um, Before we start today's podcast, on behalf of Aadit, Navneet, and myself, we want to start today's podcast with our condolences to all the members, along with Jan Rawat, who lost their lives today. In the unfortunate plane crash, we want to thank each and every person for their service. I actually did not know about the news until few hours ago because I was busy at work. But it was an utter shock to each and every one of us, and we thank them for their service. Boys, you want to say something?
Yeah, I
It's a
mean, Navneet, you first.
it's a very unfortunate incident, Kushal, and I also just got to know only a couple of hours ago. So it's a very unfortunate incident, and sincere condolences to General Rawat and all those who have lost lives. We salute their courage, and we send our condolences to their families. Extremely sad news.
Yeah, I mean, same. I mean, for us on this side of the globe, I was waking up to this news. First thing I saw when I woke up, it's horrible news. A very honorable man, very distinguished career, brave soldier, and him and his wife both were there. Madhurika Rawat, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and
Yeah.
10 other soldiers who passed away. Before we start, I just want to say just the names of the other people who were there in the flight: General Bipin Rawat, Mrs. Madhurika Rawat, Brigadier L.S. Lidder, Lieutenant Colonel Harjinder Singh, Gursevak Singh, Jitendra Kumar, Vivek Kumar, V. Sai Teja, Havaldar Satpal, and other members of the crew on the helicopter. Our prayers and condolences with their families.
All right, so boys, this is going to be our agenda for today. Let's start with
Yeah.
the recently concluded India and New
Mhm.
Zealand series. So we three T20s and two Test matches. Obviously, we defeated New Zealand 3-0 in the T20 series and won the Test match series 1-0 with the first
Mhm.
match going right to the wire on the fifth day, where we came tantalizingly close, where New Zealand held on to it with just one wicket
Mhm.
in hand. So T20, as you guys know, I have no no opinion about T20 cricket,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you guys should not. And this is why you guys speak more than I do, because you guys watch T20. I don't. So let's start like this. Let's start. Okay, Navneet. So what? And then Adit, you. So your
Mhm.
views on the overall recently concluded series, both T20 and Test match cricket.
Uh, See, Kushal, New Zealand has been a thorn in our flesh, thorn in India's flesh in the ICC tournaments from last 15 years. If I remember correctly, in last 15, 16 years, we have not won an ICC. We have not won a match against New Zealand in the ICC tournaments, be it the Test Championship where we lost in the final, in the 50-over World Cups and 20-over World Cups. At least I don't remember any match against New Zealand in the ICC tournaments. Perhaps India has won a one match. I'm perhaps forgetting, but by and large, our record against New Zealand has been abysmal in the ICC tournaments in the last 15 years. But when New Zealand come to but when the New Zealand come to England, it's a different battlefield altogether, because India is a highly dominant team at home, and I mean the results both in the T20s and Test matches have not surprised me even a bit. I was expecting these results. See, New Zealand has an exceedingly win against us in the ICC tournaments, but outside ICC tournaments, India have had the upper hand. So yeah, I mean, I'm not very surprised at how both the series have turned out to be. And by the way, New Zealand has not won a Test match in India since 1988. In 1988, Richard Hadley's spirited bowling performance led New Zealand to a victory in 1988. But from last 33 years, New Zealand is yet to win a Test match in India.
To, to be honest, I think Ajas Patel's 10 wickets in Mumbai could have was a very spirited bowling performance, as Navneet said, to lead them, but the batsmen just didn't show up. Uh, um, the T20 thing is interesting, guys, because we even like when we went to New Zealand last year and kind of struggled in the test matches. We lost both of them. We did very well in T20s. So
Final.
yeah, so it's and the famous super overs came to haunt New Zealand over there too. If knockouts are India's
Yeah.
bane when it comes to playing New Zealand, super overs are New Zealand's bane when it comes to playing anybody, India or England. They just can't seem to win one. I think the real question is I think that is why a lot of us were surprised when we saw our performance in the T20 World Cup against New Zealand, because our T20 record has been so well, and the conditions in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, wherever, I forget which of the stadiums we were playing that day, were very similar to the conditions you find in India. It was not zipping off the surface, it was gripping, it was slow. So people expected India to put up a bigger fight. Having said that, I think the T20s, normally I would not pay attention to T20s happening so closer to the World Cup, but this time it was important because it was a challenge for the new captain Rohit Sharma and the new coach Rahul Dravid, and they did well. I think one must also acknowledge that the New Zealand team were fatigued, having lost the final the way they did, and the amount they battled throughout the World Cup. It's not an easy task to just come 3 days later and start playing the T20s in totally different conditions. So that was that, and I mean, so much so that I don't even think the broadcasters of New Zealand were there. Simon Dool only joined for the Test series. He was not even there for the T20s. So that's how close it was to the World Cup final. And so I think it's good news. But Rohit Sharma, just before we started recording, I got the news that Rohit Sharma has been appointed the
ODI
captain
captain.
for ODI captain
Yeah,
South Africa.
we'll
And
talk about that when we talk about the South Africa series.
no.
About
I just want to no. The reason I mentioned it is that is why it was very important for an Indian fan's perspective that we do very well, because this is a trial for Rohit Sharma's captaincy in South ODI and T20. That's why I wanted to mention that.
All right. So two, three things that I want to say. Okay, first one that stood out to me was like literally, मतलब T20 के
Mm,
बारे में मेरा कोई opinion नहीं है, so मैं नहीं दूंगा. Test match series. So what did you
mm,
guys make of Ravichandran Ashwin being declared the man of the series? I think this is the 10th time Ravichandran Ashwin has won a man of the series award, if my memory serves me correctly. And my memory serves me correctly because Ravichandran Ashwin himself said that he won it for the 10th time when Murli Karthik asked him in the presentation ceremony. So first of all, so what did you two make of it? So Adit, you first, and then Navneet. Did you guys? Okay, let me ask you more questions, and so that because we want to focus more on the South Africa series.
mm, mm,
Um, so first question was, did you guys agree with the man of the series thing, Adit? Second was, did you agree with the strategy of in the first test match when we declared? Because if we
mm.
would have declared early, we would have had more time to bowl them out. And in the second test match, did you agree with Kohli's strategy of not giving a follow on? So these
Mm.
three questions. Adit, you first, and then Navneet.
Okay. So the first question, Ashwin, man of the series. I mean, I guess he did like have that much performances that warrant a man of the series. The other man of the series sort of nominee would be Mayank Agarwal, because when the ball was turning square, and he almost did a Rohit Sharma type series, which he did against England when we played them, where the bowlers dominated, but he just, whenever they batted very well. But I think Ashwin was outstanding with the ball, so I have no problems in them giving him the man of the series. um, second point to which I think in the post Kohli era in the white ball cricket, also in T20s, we saw a larger role for Ashwin. The camaraderie with Rohit Sharma was very visible on the field, and given the T20 World Cup is only a year from now, I would not be surprised if Ashwin plays throughout and plays through to the T20 World Cup in Australia in 2022. Let's not forget, Ashwin had a phenomenal tour of Australia in 2020, the last tour that we went. So that's the first part. The second question, declaration. I don't know. It's a risk you take because India wanted to make sure that New Zealand do not chase down the target if we do 250, 240 or 250. What was perplexing was they did not go hammer and tongs for the runs, right? The last 30, 35 runs, when India was only 250 ahead, we played some last 18 or 17 overs for 50 runs or something. So we went 3 runs an over, right? So clearly you were at a point when you were 230 ahead. Why did you not just go hell for leather for 6 overs? And that would have given you 7 or 8 overs at the end of the other day. But the moot point here is when you have 8.5 overs and the last two players batsmen, a team should be able to take a wicket. So that is what surprised me more, that the last two players batted out almost 50 balls. And then the to your second question about whether Virat Kohli should have enforced the follow on or not, I think he absolutely should have. I think it was a very defensive move. After a side has been bundled out for 62 all out, and Mohammad Siraj has bowled an insane spell. I mean, he looked unplayable in those 5 or 6 overs. I think when your bowling lineup is that charged up, you give them another go. And you see what Pakistan did to Bangladesh today. You give them another go and they'll come out from, and the game would have been over in day 3 very comfortably. But I suspect that the captain also wanted some batting practice. this is
Yeah,
just
the
my
captain's
conspiracy
behavior.
theory.
The captain's behavior was like, how we would do, bat mera hai, batting main karunga kind of a thing. I don't know. Navneet, what do you make it?
See, I completely back Virat Kohli's decision to not enforce the follow-on because see, New Zealand were bundled out for 62 runs, right? So by then it was pretty evident that the match is more or less, the Test match is more or less is in India's pocket. I mean New Zealand is bowled out for 62 on the second day. I think Virat Kohli wanted the batting practice, and he was confident that
I think his internet.
Yeah, I think he'll be
Yeah, I
back.
think his internet. Yeah, he'll be back. No, so I mean, I'll wait for Navneet to make his point. But there was another point also that Virat Kohli's form is a concern to many Indians. Yeah, he looked very, very out of sorts. Like I don't know if it was just me. Did you get a chance to see the game at the stadium, Kushal?
No, I could not. Unfortunately, I could not go to the stadium.
Because I was very curious about how why Virat Kohli was
I was
struggling
gonna
so.
go to the stadium. A friend of mine, मैं उसका नाम नहीं लूंगा. He
Huh.
ditched me last moment. साले ने धोखा
अरे.
दे दिया. I was trolling him on WhatsApp, telling him to धोखेबाज है.
You should have a meme like that too, Dhokebaz. Navneet, yeah, you were saying something. He's back.
So I was saying that I completely back Virat Kohli's decision to not enforce the follow-on. By then, after bundling out New Zealand for 62, the match was almost sealed. And yes, I think that Virat Kohli wanted batters to have some batting practice because our batsmen, especially the middle order, has been shaky for a long time, and Pujara and Rahane in particular, who once were the mainstays of our middle order, they have been really faltering and struggling for a long time. So I think before the South Africa tour, Virat Kohli, wanted his batters to have a bit more practice. So I'm totally cool with that decision because because more than bowlers, our batters needed the practice to get ready for the Test match. So I think
I mean, maybe. I think the batters needed the practice, but what surprised me was how bad Kohli looked on the crease. Yeah, he just looked like he was not in his element.
Yeah, he did not look in his element. And also, let me tell you, I don't know what is happening in this Indian team now.
Mm.
I think this series was pretty much, I don't know how to say it, this was your regular milk toast domestic series, right? Where
Mhm.
it went on as it was expected, other than the little blip in the first test where we could not defeat them by taking the last wicket, and Ajaz
and
Patel
and it
taking
was
those 10 wickets
and
literally.
it was due to Rahane's poor captaincy. I was highly disappointed with Rahane's captaincy in the first test, especially on the last day. See, I think when the new ball was taken on the last day, Ashwin and Akshar Patel should have started bowling, but I think the new ball was given to Ishant Sharma, who had looked completely unimpressive and lackluster. I mean, Ishant has been an impressive performer in last 4 years overseas, but at home Ishant has not looked threatening, at least in this series,
No,
especially on the last.
I disagree, Navneet. In the last 3 years, yes, but the last 1 year he's been insipid. We've had this discussion before England also, where
At
Virat
home, I'm
Kohli
talking
keeps
about
playing.
Aadit. I'm
No,
talking
no, no,
about at
no. Yeah, yeah,
home.
agree. No, but I'm saying Ishant Sharma in general in the last 1 year has been very average.
True, true, true. So my point is that on the last day with the new ball, Akshar Patel and Ashwin should have started. Those 7 years given to Ishant Sharma broke the momentum. Still, when Ashwin had picked up an early wicket on the last day, and after that, I think the momentum should have been maintained, and Rahane should have continued with Ashwin and Akshar with the new ball. But I think the new ball was given to Ishant Sharma, and that momentum was snapped, and then yeah, I mean, few overs New Zealand played out. In the end, of course, Ashwin and Akshar and Jadeja, they all bowled nicely, and India came close to winning the test match. That's no excuse that in I mean, even the last pair played out 50 balls as 52 balls as Adit mentioned. India should have mopped up the tail, but I think Rahane missed a couple of tricks on the last day, and his captaincy in the first test was pretty mediocre. I mean, I have a
Well,
lot of regard for Rahane as a captain. In the past, Rahane has really shown strategic acumen, but his captaincy left a lot to be desired in the first test.
well, the selectors agree with you. They dropped him as a vice captain for the South Africa tour.
But
All
I
right. So
suspect there
now,
is.
so let me share something. So Navneet, then you can maybe chime in. रुको, मेरे को बीसीसीआई की ऑफिशियल अनाउंसमेंट का ही पेज ही खोलने दो. इट्स बेटर. पीपल कैन नॉट क्वेश्चन आवर सोर्सेज. भाई बीसीसीआई का ही पेज खोल रहे हैं.
हाँ, हम लोग प्रेस
So
रिलीज ही
India
कोट
squad
करते
for
हैं.
हाँ प्रेस आर्टिकल ही है ना ये. बीसीसीआई की वेबसाइट है.
Yeah,
India squad
yeah.
for tests against South Africa announced. So this is the squad for tests against South Africa. Virat Kohli is captain. Rohit Sharma is the vice captain of the test side. By the way, KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal, Cheteshwar Pujara, Ajinkya Rahane, Shreyas Iyer, Hanuma Vihari, Rishabh Pant, Vridhiman Saha, R. Ashwin, Jayant Yadav, Ishant Sharma, Mohammad Shami, Umesh Yadav, Jasprit Bumrah, Shardul Thakur, Mohammad Siraj. Your standby players are Navdeep Saini, Saurabh Kumar, Deepak Chahar, and Arzan Nagwaswala. The following players were not available for selection due to injuries and are currently undergoing rehabilitation are Ravindra Jadeja, Shubman Gill, Akshar Patel, and Rahul Chahar. The test series starts at the 26th. I think this is the Boxing Day test match. Then the next one is 3rd January and then 11th of January. The first one is going to be at Supersport Park Centurion. The second one at Wanderers Johannesburg. And the third one at Newlands Cape Town. In case you're wondering why am I speaking this all, because this also goes as an audio podcast. So I care for the audio listeners also. So let's start with this. Navneet, first you, and then Adit, I want your opinions also. Obviously,
Mhm.
everybody is aware of the big news. Rohit Sharma has officially been declared as the ODI and T20 captain, and Rahane has been removed as the vice captain of the test side, which clearly indicates that Team India now intends to move on from Rahane. So we have to discuss this. And another thing that I want to discuss also is that look, this whole um, test series itself or this tour was under jeopardy because of Mogambo variant Omicron. मैं उसको Mogambo variant बोलता हूँ. So what was heartening to see was the players took a gap to see what is happening, but they did not cancel the test matches and the ODIs. They postponed the T20 internationals. So first you Navneet and then Adit. I want to hear your views also. So what do you guys make of the squad, of the captaincy decisions, and also this decision about postponing the T20s and giving a signal that we value Test cricket more than T20 cricket?
Uh, so okay, let me take it one by one. First of all, the test squad is mostly on the expected lines. They are. I mean, I'm very happy for Hanuma Vihari that he's inducted in the test side. Hanuma Vihari was inexplicably left out of the test squad against New Zealand, so I'm very happy that he's back in the squad. That's very heartening. The rest of the squad is on the expected lines. Akshar Patel, I think, is not available, else he would have made in place of Jayant Yadav. But yeah, more or less the test side is on the expected lines. But the interesting bit is that Rahane has been dropped as a vice captain. Now that's a very clear indication to Rahane that this perhaps can be your last test, or if he fails in the first couple of test matches, the this could be it for Rahane's Test career. Uh, the this can be curtains for Rahane's Test career. See, Rahane has been, as much as I like Rahane's captaincy previously, as I mentioned in the Kanpur Test, his captaincy left a lot to be desired. But in general, Rahane as a captain has impressed me in the past. But his batting has been completely insipid, and he's been a and he's been in a and he's been in the middle of this terrible patch from last 5 years. From last 5 years, he averages around 30 in test matches, and he has
Yeah.
played over 50 test matches in the last 5 years. Now that is just now that is not just a performance of a top order batsman, especially when India is brimming with young talents. There's so many talented cricketers who are waiting in the wings. People like Shubman Gill and Shreyas Iyer showed in the recent series that they are here to stay for a long time, and many others are also knocking at the doors. So I think this message to Rahane is very significant. He has been dropped as a vice captain. That means that his place in the playing 11 is no longer secure, and that's a very clear message to Rahane. And pretty good news for Rohit Sharma, and deservingly so. Rohit Sharma has been phenomenal in Test cricket from last 2.5 years. He has scored runs everywhere, not just in India. In India, he's been just excellent, but even in England, Rohit Sharma played pretty nicely. So that's a reward which Rohit Sharma truly deserves. So yeah, if you look at the Test squad, this is the most important thing to be noticed.
I think there is one other thing also, and that this almost guarantees that Ashwin is going to play all test matches in South Africa, because you've not picked an all-rounder, and the reason for leaving out Ashwin was because Jadeja used to play, but I don't see Jayant Yadav coming in place of Ravichandran Ashwin, although His Highness Emperor Kohli has his own reasons. But I think for the last 6 months or something, since the T20 World Cup and stuff, it almost seems to have been a truce that has been reached between Kohli and Ashwin. And I know people were going, there were memes going around where they were celebrating a wicket, things, nothing is wrong. I'm like, no, something was wrong. I think it's just been amicably resolved. And it's good for Indian cricket if it has, because you have the highest wicket taker in the world right now this year, who was sitting out of 4 test matches in England, two of them where it was turning absolutely square on day 4 and 5. So th- such was the thing. Most importantly for Rahane is his overall test record also has been very blowout, blow cold. It's been a very, I mean, his average is 39, right? And when he plays, he does not look like a player whose average is 39. But if you look at his performances this series, it would be a 30-40 odd and a 20 odd. Same in, so average stays between the 30-40 sort of range rather than pushing above his weight. And what is ironic is 4 or 3 years ago, I forget when we last played South Africa, and we lost the series 2-1. Rahane was not picked in the first 2 test matches. And Rahane then came in the third test match, played a very crucial innings, and that was the start of Rahane 2.0. Now we're back 4 years later, and Rahane 1.0 has returned. That was left out of the Indian team. And instead of the last test match, now he's going to battle for his place in the first two. So it's almost like a big full circle coming. But what is interesting and sad is that Shubman Gill is injured again. The amount of time he spent out of the team, this was his time, right? He's impressed people, and Mayank Agarwal and him both made a case for going. But if he's injured again, with Rahul, Agarwal, and Rohit Sharma being there, he is. I just don't see a path forward for Shubman Gill in the first choice 11.
Okay, now let's talk about the starting 11 itself. Now,
Hmm.
here's the case. So let's start with this first. So I'm going
Hmm.
to take a live viewer's question first. And I
Hmm.
think this question was good. So the question was, how long can India maintain dominance in on the performance of openers, all-rounders, and bowlers if Kohli, Rahane, and Pujara don't contribute? Rahane should be shown the door has already been answered, but we still need to discuss the Kohli and Pujara angle. So what do we
Yeah.
do? And so let me add to the question. So again, Navneet, you can come in first. So what will be your playing 11? So the bowlers, बाद में देखेंगे, but what will be your top 7?
Okay, my top seven will be Rohit Sharma. Rohit Sharma and Mayank Agarwal will open. I'm talking about the playing 11 of the first test. I mean, in the second test, it depends on some factors that who does well in the first test or not. My playing 11 for the first test would be uh, Rohit Sharma, Mayank Agarwal, uh, Cheteshwar Pujara, Virat Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, uh, since Shreyas Iyer, and I'll give one more chance to Rahane, Ajinkya Rahane, and Rishabh Pant. These
Um,
are, these,
if
these are my top seven.
Yeah. My top seven would be similar. I think I would start with Rohit Sharma and Mayank Agarwal too. Unfortunately, KL Rahul misses out because Mayank Agarwal has been extremely good in the New Zealand series, and I don't think he should be dropped. But he should be on a one Test match thing. If he cannot play the short ball and if he gets out playing dumb shots, then which has happened with Agarwal before, then KL Rahul comes in the second Test match, no questions asked. Pujara at four, Kohli at Pujara at three, Kohli at four. Rahane at five stays. Again, Rahane with a one test match thing. For number six, I honestly think we should have Hanuma Vihari and we should not have Shreyas Iyer, because in case these guys Kohli and Rahane fail, we cannot have another stroke maker coming at like 65 for 4 and trying to like blaze his way in South Africa. You need someone who will hunker down and play a long innings, because you already have Rishabh Pant at 7. Right. I mean, if there was Saha at 7, then maybe I would think about giving Shreyas Iyer at 6. But if you already have a stroke maker like Pant at 7, then my goal would be for Hanuma Vihari at 6. Now, there is another sideways sort of thing. Uh, there is another option that India could look at, was play Pant at 6 and play Shardul Thakur at 7. And then you have five bowlers, like four bowlers, and you have Ashwin and Thakur playing the two all-rounders.
That's what I was thinking. So I think Rahul and Rohit should open. In my view, I think Rahul did exceedingly well in England in those, in those moving conditions. So I really don't see any reason. Mayank Agarwal has scored runs in India, and those are relatively easier conditions to bat on. Now, I think KL did very well in England, so I think he should get the nod. He would have anyways been the first choice, right? Had he not been
Yeah,
injured in the
true.
series.
Yeah,
So I
correct,
think
correct.
he's going to be the first choice as far as opener. Pujara, in my view, is hands down one down. I know he's struggling a little bit, but it's just that the amount of time he spends on the crease that adds value in itself in the larger context of a test match. I know Kohli is struggling, but उसकी struggling भी मतलब 36 40 50 रन होती है, उसकी struggling 2 रन नहीं होती है. तो मतलब
Yeah,
कोहली के बारे में बोलना मतलब मेरे हिसाब से गुनाह है, तो मत बोलो. ठीक है जो हो रहा है. Now I would drop Rahane, to be very honest. I would go with Vihari, and this is where I would adjust Mayank Agarwal. तो भाई नीचे बैटिंग कर ले. Or I'm going to throw set the cat amongst the pigeons. I would take Saha as a pure keeper and Rishabh Pant as a pure batsman too. I'm open to that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, when you see Saha's keeping in this Test series, that's when you know what you miss out with when Pant is keeping. I mean, the way he was keeping to spinners and the way he was stumping them, it was beautiful to watch. मतलब मुझे नयन मोंगिया के दिन याद आ गए, because नयन मोंगिया would be a shit batsman, but when he would keep against Anil Kumble, पता नहीं उसके तो कितने bones तोड़े हैं face के, कुंबले ने ball bounce कर.
सबा करीम का
But
करियर
these
खत्म
guys
हो
wouldn't
गया.
have. I mean, these guys wouldn't have been able to keep to Jumbo in his prime day, because I mean, I mean, the way they would have to adjust for the bounce when Kumble would bounce off a good length was unbelievable. And Saha almost took me back to those days in this
Yeah,
series.
it was so obvious that Vridhiman Saha was a better wicket keeper in this series is when you remember that over where Ravichandran Ashwin beat, I think it was Henry Nichols or Tom Latham, I don't remember. He beat him three times, and all the three times the ball came in and it just bounced and spun viciously in Wankhede. And all the three times, I don't think so Rishabh Pant would have been able to catch that ball at all.
Oh, we
Matlab,
would have had like 40 buys in two Test matches if Pant was the keeper. And this is nothing against Pant at the keeper. I just think Saha is a brilliant keeper. I mean, if you saw the way he stumped Henry Nichols out, he was going for a 6. I mean, that ball turned a foot, and Saha just keeps it and whips it out in a flash.
Yeah, I'm not going to discuss Rahul Dravid as a coach, is because you cannot discuss Rahul Dravid as a coach for at
Right.
least the next 6 to 8 months or 1 year. All I
Hmm.
know is Saurav Ganguly was on Boria Mujumdar's show, and he said that he was offered the Indian coaching job way before, and he was denying it all the time for personal reasons, because it's, you have to be away from your family for 8 to 9 months in a year.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Rahul Dravid has two young kids, and he did not want to ruin his family life. So in fact, Ganguly said that I was shocked when he accepted. Now हम तो उसको मतलब इतने देर से पटाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे कि तो आने का ही
Yeah,
नाम नहीं ले रहा था. So
I
that
saw.
that that was there. But now let's get into the bowling bit. Okay, so obviously I know both of you might say that spinner होगा तो naturally Ashwin को खिलाएंगे. But who are your three fast bowlers going to be? So I'll start with my choice so that you guys know. My choice is clear: Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Shami, and Mohammad Siraj. I would go with these three. My first choice.
Absolutely. I'll also go with these three.
Bumrah and Siraj play all three test matches. Where I have my doubt is between Shami and Umesh Yadav, because Umesh Yadav brings you that raw pace that Shami does not. But आपको एक line and length bowler चाहिए South Africa के लिए, where the ball is seaming all around in, like, in the morning session and so forth. And for, I think, Shami plays for that, and just his reputation. I think Shami plays in all test matches regardless, like before Umesh Yadav and Ishant Sharma. I think Ishant Sharma is just there as a backup bowler in case one of them gets injured. I just don't see him playing. And if Kohli picks him as his fourth fast bowler and does not pick Ashwin, then I don't know what I can even say. Like, I mean, he cannot. I don't think he walks in this team.
Yeah, I think so too. Now I want to talk about something very absurd that
But
was
no,
a
but you
news.
didn't answer one thing, Kushal. We were talking about, right? Would you rather have a sixth batsman, or would you rather have Shardul Thakur?
I would have a sixth batsman, to be very honest, because I don't trust our batting skills in South Africa.
I'll
No,
also
I don't.
start
But
with
that is
six
why I think
batsmen.
Thakur might do a better job than our stroke makers.
मतलब वो जाके
So
घुमाने का ही काम करना है, तो 30 रन वो भी बनाएगा, 30 रन ये भी
don't
बनाएगा.
forget, that is what was the difference in the last test match. We were what, 140 for 8, और आके उसने घुमाया, and that's what turned the test match in our favor.
Hmm.
The fourth test match against England.
True, you do have a point, and I think Shardul Thakur is a very underrated all-rounder.
And
मतलब
and
उसकी जो
don't forget,
contributions है वो
Kushal, and
बहुत important
I'm going
होती
to
हैं.
I'm going to troll all the listeners. When I put this point out before the England series, they were like, "Ha ha ha! Shardul Thakur खेलेगा, क्या difference करेगा?" When I made this point before the England series, and I'm like, "Who's laughing now, people?" Sorry, I just had to do a humble brag because of the
नहीं नहीं.
vicious trolling that I received in that podcast for suggesting that he should play all at
Hmm.
least three test matches.
Okay, I don't know what to make of this news item, but I read
Hmm.
this on
Hmm.
some obscure website. I mean, so the BCCI made this announcement that no pork and beef in any form, all meat items should be halal, and the new dietary plan for the Indian cricket team.
BCCI has
दुनिया
rubbish
इस पे
this now.
आउटरीच कर चुकी थी, मगर
Hmm.
आई मीन इसके ऊपर अभी करंट स्टेटस क्या है भाई?
BCCI has rubbished this. BCCI rubbished this news. BCCI says that it has not issued any such
पक्का
statement
ना?
or any such.
गुड.
BCCI has rubbished this news.
Yeah, this is
Hmm.
why I brought it up, because I wanted to put it on record, because क्या होता है मालूम है, things just stay in the sphere forever
Hmm.
in the internet.
Yeah. Unrelated, I think Ganguly must have said that the only thing BCCI will regulate when I'm the chairman is fish, nothing else. So, and even Dada will agree with me when it says that. Yeah,
Oh man,
jokes
I mean,
apart,
when I had read this news, I was shocked.
no, I mean, I'm glad that BCCI clarified this, because this was honestly a very dumb sort of news item. If certain cricketers have their personal preferences, BCCI should communicate that with the host boards or the host associations, and they should be accommodated. No one should be forced to do anything. But you don't set policies for a team that represents an entire country. Yeah, that's just rubbish.
Yeah, true. Okay, now let's get into. Okay. By the way, I saw the highlights of West Indies versus Sri Lanka, two Test matches. I have to say, look, these are my observations only on the basis of
I'm applauding you for watching them.
नहीं, मैंने डेडिकेटेड मैनर में पूरी 1-1.5 घंटा स्पेंड करके फर्स्ट टेस्ट और सेकंड टेस्ट की हाइलाइट्स देखी. करुणा रत्ने को छोड़ दो, जो श्रीलंका का कैप्टन है, उसको साइड में रख दो, ठीक है. ये क्या हो रहा है? ये क्या गंद है? ये लोग टेस्ट मैच खेल रहे हैं और एम्बुल दिनिया को एक साइड में रख दो, ठीक है. श्रीलंका की साइड से उनका लेफ्ट आर्म स्पिनर एम्बुल दिनिया और श्रीलंका की साइड से उनका ओपनर करुणा रत्ने, जो उनका कैप्टन है, ठीक है. वेस्ट इंडीज की साइड से जेसन होल्डर ने डिसेंट बॉलिंग की है. एक्चुअली में उसको विकेट नहीं मिली है, मगर वो डिसेंट है, ठीक है. बाकी oh my god, I saw that series highlights, and they had detailed segment, like every day ka segment was 20 to 25 minutes, which was on the Sri Lanka Cricket Board channel. I was just left scratching my head, and you guys don't have to discuss this, but I'm just trying to put it on record that I now, because we are going to do this podcast monthly, I watch it. I was shocked. It is quite obvious that Test cricket now has 2 tiers or 2.5 tiers, where
absolutely.
I mean, it was atrocious what I saw between Sri Lanka and West Indies.
Horrible. I honestly think that ultimately we are going to come to a point where the ICC will have to say that against the tier 1 teams or something, you only play 5 test series against those, and then against tier 2 teams, you don't play anything more than a 3 test series. I mean, I was just thinking that imagine if Sri Lanka and West Indies had played a 4 or 5 test series like back in the day. And I mean, kaun dekhta yaar? Like, they would have to struggle to assemble players. West Indies almost is, it's not one team now. West Indies is 45 cricketers. 15 test khelte, okay, I should say 15, top 15 played T20. Then the next year 15 played ODIs. And then the last year plays test matches. Or bechara Jason Holder sab kuch khelta hai. That is West Indies cricket in a nutshell. I mean, remember those days, Kushal, when you could actually remember each and every member of the West Indian squad, right? Like we knew who freaking Mervyn Dillon was, Franklin Rose was, Nixon McLean was.
ने तो हमारी बर्बादी की थी वो बारबेडोस टेस्ट में.
हाँ भाई, so that's what I'm saying. You remember that, right?
Leon King.
Take the fast. Yeah, like Leon King, exactly. And these are like early 2000s players, right? Now you look at the West Indian team, you cannot like. पहले तो मैं अगर ये पूछूंगा कि who is the wicket keeper for West Indies, किसी को पता ही नहीं चलेगा. एक में कोई शे होप है, एक में वो दिनेश रामदीन है. I mean, there are just multiple things.
डिसिल्वा है ना वो डिसिल्वा है अभी खेलता है.
Joshua De Silva. Sorry, Joshua De Silva. Yeah. So that's exactly my point, right? Like no one knows. And when World T20 देख रहा था, Ravi Rampal, I was like, oh my god, he hasn't retired. He's still there. He came back to play T20 cricket. I mean, I'm good. I'm happy for him that he hasn't retired. But that was my first reaction. I was like, yeah, अभी भी खेलता है. अच्छा, good.
Okay, somebody has asked this question: how much do pitch conditions influence Indian team selections for overseas tours presently and in history? As it seems that is half the battle. Look, they do obviously come into the fact, right? It's not like if you're going to South Africa and Australia, they don't carry a larger spin quartet. They carry more fast bowlers. So obviously these things do come into considerations. I mean, it's an obvious thing. Just check the home series selections and compare it to the overseas selections.
But I'll tell you this, India also suffers from a problem since we've been doing a lot of well overseas, that we try to we don't play to our strengths, right? Like now New Zealand doesn't pick spinners in New Zealand conditions because their spinners are not world class. I mean, Ajaz Patel did what he did, but he's not played that many test matches. So maybe in Ajaz they have found a world class spinner. But when you pick 4 fast bowlers, like if you pick Bumrah, Siraj and Shami are walk-ons, right? But if there is a choice between Nishant Sharma, who's looked lackluster, and Ashwin, who's gotten man of the series, I mean, I would go with the champion bowlers, right? And this also brings in, I know we are not talking about the Ashes right now. We'll talk a little later. But you and I, Kushal, we were having a discussion offline about how I believe that James Anderson should have played in the first test match, because England suffers from this in like 5x, where they try to build the squads and look at the conditions. No, man. When you have a champion bowler, when you have a big test match, big series, you play the champion bowler, you play the champion performer, because that's what they do. They step it up. And that gear is not found in practice or anyways. That just comes with having played the game at the highest level.
True, true. So now जब तुमने Pandora's box खोल ही दिया है, so let us talk about the ashes. But before we talk about the ashes, look, we have to talk about what has gone on before the ashes. I mean, I think I know most podcasts will not talk about it. One thing I like about the great cricketer is they don't avoid uncomfortable discussions. They talk about issues. That's why I admire the boys at the great cricketer. By the way, um,
Hmm.
so let's start with this. So the ashes has already started today morning. बाय द वे वेरी इरिटेटिंग 5:30 बजे उठना पड़ता है सुबह के. मैं फर्स्ट सेशन सो के देखा था. सिर्फ क्या होता था, मैं चालू किया, वो मिचेल स्टार्क ने विकेट ली, हाँ मेरी नींद खुल गई क्योंकि कमेंटेटर चिल्लाए. फिर उसके बाद मैं सोना शुरू किया, फिर सडनली मैं उठता था, विकेट गिरी, फिर मैं उठता था, फिर मैं सोता था. But my point is, let's talk about this whole thing about Tim Paine, right? So just to give everyone a brief background about what has happened is, so Tim Paine was, obviously he has resigned from the captaincy, has also taken a break from cricket in general, because there was an ongoing investigation, by the way, and Tim Paine was involved in something where he had sent some messages. Okay, it involved dick pics. I don't have any other way to put it, because it literally was that. Now there is a lot of discussion going on, but I want to just share few facts with people, and I'm going to read an excerpt from an article which was written by, I think, Sam Perry. It is written by Sam Perry. So
Hmm.
Sam Perry is from the great cricketer. So the contradictory Australian cricket culture still ruled by traditional machismo was the op-ed. Now, in over here, this is an important point that Sam writes about. Sam says an internal investigation in 2018 cleared Tim Paine of any wrongdoing over the explicit text he sent to a female Cricket Australia staff member, and the exchange was found to have been, in quotes, consensual. In the 3 years between then and Paine's presser, the only tangible change seemed to be the risk of public knowledge. Evidently, that was Paine's punishable transgression. Arthat, that means Cricket Australia knew about what was happening. And the reason they sacked Tim Paine, or Tim Paine resigned, or they made him resign, was not
Hmm.
what about what Tim Paine did, because they obviously knew and they cleared him about the thing.
Hmm.
The reason they sacked him was they're like, भाई
It
अभी
has
तेरे को
become public.
ads में नहीं डाल सकते.
True.
Hmm.
Now another, I have to share another op-ed that was written again in Australia, because this is another point of view. This was written by Kerry Sackville, and it was an op-ed which said men like Tim Paine reveal how little they know or care about what women think. And I believe I urge each and every one of you, it was written on the 21st November 2021.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
urge all of you to go and read this. You don't have to agree with it in entirety, whatever, man. But so I just want to, read a passage. So she says, unsolicited dick pics are one of the many unanticipated and unpleasant consequences of the digital age. Back when I was a babysitter, the only way a man could show a non consenting woman his junk was to pull down his pants and whip it out. This was called flashing and was rightly considered a sex crime. You couldn't show a woman a photo of your little guy unless you took a pic with your analog camera, paid for it to be developed at the lab, picked it up from the horrified sales assistant, and showed it to your female friends. These days, every man with a phone can snap a pic of his doodle and share it with the click of a button. And let me tell you, a lot of men do. I am in my 50s, and over the past decade, I have received countless unsolicited photos of men's schlongs. And if it is happening to me, one can only imagine what the younger women are experiencing. As a woman in the media, I receive dick pics from men sliding into my DMs on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, even on LinkedIn. I had to share this view because I think it's a very important view that she has written and spoken about, because women do face this. But the point is, now I want to go back to Cricket Australia. They did the investigation. They literally said it was consensual.
Yep.
I'm not defending what Tim Paine did.
Yeah. See, and now making that huge error of judgment, Cricket Australia has now apologized as well. The the chairman of the Australian Cricket Board, Richard Freudenstein, he recently told a press conference that I mean, he's apologizing on behalf of Cricket Australia for not sacking Tim Paine 3 years ago. But he defends himself. He says that at that point in time, 3 years ago, he was not in the committee which had cleared Tim Paine. And now, since the matter has become public, now it's all out in the open. I mean, he's defending himself that he was not part of the committee, but he has implicated Cricket Australia. He himself has implicated Cricket Australia. He has said that they made a huge error in not sacking Tim Paine 3 years ago. So that shows the double speak of Cricket Australia, that only once the issue becomes public, only then they take these punitive actions just
Yeah.
to save their face. Now that happened also in the case of Steve Smith and Bancroft as well. But Steve Smith, David Warner, and Bancroft in 2018 in South Africa. They were in. I mean, the fact that the ball tampering was going on in the side was very evident. I mean,
Mhm.
Steve Smith, Bancroft, and David Warner only apologized when they were caught in the full public view. And then Cricket Australia took a very severe. I think the punishment which was dished out to them was extremely severe. The ban was just too much for that kind of transgression. They should have been punished, but that ban was too much. So what I'm trying to say is that Cricket Australia doesn't take stock of the rot in the system earlier, and when the issue and when these issues come to surface, they overcompensate. They overcompensate by dishing out such severe savage punishments. I mean, initially, had they taken stock of the Tim Paine's issue 3 years ago, a lot of
Mhm.
a lot of things. I mean, they could have saved their face easily. That committee, obviously, now it has been proved, was a complete hoax. So Cricket Australia should stop overcompensating by dishing out severe savage punishment once the issues become public knowledge. There is a rot in their system, and I can go back to the 1990s as well. And in 1990s, match fixing was rife in cricket. Everyone knows no no con, no country was untouched and unsullied by the scourge of match fixing. In the 1990s, Cricket Australia came to know that Shane Warne and Mark Waugh had taken money from a bookie to provide pitch and weather condition. I think they got to know in 95, 96 only, but they didn't make it public till 1999. Only when some reporter dug out the story, then only Cricket Australia apologized for it. Shane Warne and Mark Waugh apologized, and then they were fine. But Cricket Australia was aware that they had taken money from bookie in 1995, but they completely hushed up the matter. They covered up the matter. So yeah, Cricket Australia really needs to get its system in place. I mean, instead of overcompensating once the issues become public knowledge.
So there are two things here, Kushal. First, and I'm not comparing this. I want to put it like a very big disclaimer. They are not the same issues, but I find the attitude of both the boards, right? I see in terms of covering up what I see no difference in what they did in Tim Paine to what Yorkshire has done with the whole Azim Rafiq issue, right? Because ultimately, it's like when it came to light, suddenly now they are acting and banning people and stuff. But it's told there is ample evidence that Azim Rafiq talked about this, what he
Adit,
was
Adit,
facing.
Adit, let me narrate the entire incident. So can I do that so that because we were anyways going to discuss this and it was part of our agenda. So can I share
Go
it so
ahead.
that you can
So
share it?
let me complete the quick point on Tim Paine thing, and then I'll then
Yeah.
go ahead and talk about Azim Rafiq. Otherwise, I'll lose my chain of thoughts on that.
Okay, bol,
But
bol,
on
bol,
the
bol. Sorry.
on the Tim Paine issue, right? There is this whole debate about what is immoral, what is illegal, what constitutes as illegal, and who classifies whether some action is within the spirit. I mean, I have no question in my mind that there should have been some consequences for what he did, not just for this, because there should have been a proper investigation. My conspiracy theory is the reason why nothing was done 3 years ago, and this doesn't justify anything, is because Australian cricket was going through the whole Warner and Smith issue, and they're like, we don't
Exactly.
want another scandal to come out. And if that was actually the case, then not just him, the people who exonerated you also should be kicked out and stay out, be suspended. Because why just suspend Tim Paine for doing? The people who gave him a clean sheet, clearly you don't agree with the clean sheet. So the committee members, if they're still serving in Cricket Australia, they also need to be thrown out for 6 months. Why are they being kept? So this is the most sort of important part. In all of this nonsense that has happened, I wouldn't say nonsense, but thankfully it's all come out. And, because of that, Cricket Australia is forced to take an action. I think Australia has landed itself in one of the best guys to lead the team in Pat Cummins, because I don't think अगर ऐसा कुछ अगर नहीं होता तो Pat Cummins would not have been elevated so easily, like so quickly, to be the captain. But I for what reason I don't know, world cricket seems to be very squeamish about having bowlers as captains, although there has been ample evidence that bowlers make far better captains than batters.
All right. So, I want to talk about this. This is a moral conundrum, and we don't have any good answers in this issue. Anybody who comes and says sending dick pics is fine is ridiculous. I mean, come on. It is
Yeah.
absolutely nonsensical. You can't do this to anybody. So, first of all, that was the point. But it is clear that, no cricket board in this world, whether it's BCCI or Cricket Australia or even it's that bloody ICC, look, these people are here to make money, and they only do things when shit hits the roof and when there is a, temporary outrage, or what are you going to do, this and that. And they do this. That says a lot about all of them cumulatively, and Cricket Australia is no different. But then this connects us to and we'll talk about the Michael Vaughan and the racism saga separately. But let's now, because we're talking about Aussie cricket, will stick to Aussie cricket. Now this whole thing about, Ian Healy made a comment that, वो ठीक है, Pat Cummins captain ban gaya, magar now there is a whole discussion on whether Steve Smith should have been made a vice captain. Ian Chappell is very clear. He thinks Steve Smith का जो sin था वो irredeemable है. He should never be given any captaincy or vice captaincy position. That is Ian Chappell's stand.
I agree.
Mark Taylor ka stand is the complete opposite. Both are in the same news network. Mark Taylor's stand is he was punished, he served his sentence, now he should be considered for captaincy. Ian Healy ka stand hai, he could be considered for captaincy, but it brings too much drama. So let's talk about the vice captaincy then, and then we'll just get into the Ashes, and then we'll discuss the cricket, because we've had enough of this. So Navneet, what do you make of this whole? Should Steve Smith have been made the vice captain, or they should have gone with Manas Labuschagne?
See, I lean more towards Mark Taylor, I must say. See, I don't think I'm not defending what Steve Smith did. What he did was appalling. But let's not be blind. Let's not live in a let's not live under a rock. What Steve Smith and David Warner were up to. I mean, it's not something that is unique to the teams. In fact, many cricketers in privately they admit that at some point they have tempered with the ball. So I mean, I'm not saying that what Steve Smith did was justified at all. It was a transgression, but as Mark rightly said, that he has been suitably punished for it. But I don't think his crime is such, if I can call it a crime. His crime is such that he should be, that he should be booed or he should be
For the
ridiculed.
record, Navneet, just to add to your point, Pat Cummins asked for Steve Smith as a vice captain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly. So my point is, you can't punish the guy for a life for one transgression. And I'm against those players who have been implicated in match fixing, or people who have been hobnobbing with suspicious dodgy characters, and their probity, uh, their integrity are under if their probity and integrity are under strain, are under scrutiny. Those guys should not be made captains or vice captains. For an example, I always give that example. In 2000, Justice Qayyum, in his diluted report, clearly said that people like Wasim Akram and Waqar Yunus should never be made captains. They are not squeaky clean, and they have been hobnobbing with dodgy, dubious characters. But within a year of Justice Qayyum's report, Waqar Yunus was made the captain of Pakistan cricket team. That was completely abhorrent and despicable and completely wrong. But in case of in case of Steve Smith, his crime is not so appalling. I mean that he should be punished for life. I'm very clear with that. And for whatever his transgression was, he was suitably punished. He served his punishment, and so I mean I think I see no reason why he can't be made vice captain or perhaps in future captain as well.
I have a mixed position on this, Kushal. I If you ask, if it was up to me, anyone who's accused of ball tampering or convicted of the thing, they should have sort of some. I don't think the 1 year ban was maybe too harsh, but there should be some severe consequences of
True.
captaincy or something. What happened to David Warner? My problem here is there is no consistency. ICC should come out with the thing that if you're caught using for ball tampering or match fixing or something, you cannot be made a captain throughout in all countries. If Shahid Afridi on camera has a picture of him trying to bite the freaking ball and he still continues to be a captain or something like that, then
Yeah.
of course I'm saying it, out of jest, but if David Warner can be given a captaincy ban, I think one of your viewers had a question like that too. Why not Steve Smith? So there is no consistency, right? Because just because Steve Smith is your best batsman, you cannot give him a lifetime ban on captaincy or whatever. So I would agree with Navneet's point about them being allowed to captain if there was a consistent stand like this across world cricket. That if you are caught, with ball tampering, if you've done your time, you can come back and become the vice captain or captain. But if that happens with one player and does not happen with other player, then in my opinion,
True.
both should be not given a chance.
No, I
That would be
completely
my
agree.
position.
I completely agree. The rules should be same for all.
Yeah, but it's never been the same way. In Pakistan, Salim Malik and Danish Kaneria suffered disproportionately more than many others.
True.
Yeah.
In India,
No, but I'm saying
some
ICC can come up with a rule, no?
True. ICC can come up with the rule.
That
Don't
if you're
need
accused of ball tampering, there'll be a 5 year moratorium where you cannot be the captain. And if you're that good of a player to sustain for 5 years, then maybe you become a captain after 5.
see, the thing is that who can be a captain or a vice captain who has a secured place in the side. Only that person can be a captain or a vice
Yeah.
captain. Right now in Australia, who has a secured place outside of Hazelwood, Smith, Steven Smith,
comments.
Manas Labuschagne,
Love.
and
Hmm.
Pat Cummins and Carey
And,
now
and
because
David Warner.
yeah, nobody else has a space in the side, so usi mein se hone wala. Anyways, now chalo, let's get into the cricket. Obviously, day one of the
Yeah.
Ashes today, the wonderful England team gets bundled out for 147 in 2 sessions, and an absolutely electrifying start to the Test match where on the first ball, Mitchell Stark gets a wicket, and I don't know what's with Shane Warne and Mitchell Stark. Seriously, Shane Warne needs to chill, man. I love Shane Warne. I'm his biggest fan. I mean, उसमें भी बोल रहा है बॉल स्विंग नहीं हुई, क्लियरली बॉल ट्रैकर बता रहा है बॉल कितनी स्विंग हुई, बोलते हैं Shane Warne has
No,
really been
no.
very biased
The
against us.
best reaction was by Mark Waugh. He's like, "Mate, are you kidding? That ball swung from leg stump onto the middle." He's like, "No, it was a half volley." Mark Waugh was in disbelief. He's like, "What are you talking, Shane?"
Shane Warne has
It was
strong likes
disgusting.
and dislikes. He still holds grudges against Steve Waugh because Steve Waugh dropped him from the Antigua Test in 1999. So Shane Warne is a man who has who has very strong likes and dislikes. People he likes, he shout praises on them. People, even if I remember that in 2013 when Australia came to India, Australia lost 4-0. Australia were demolished, were completely demolished. But Shane Warne was still singing praises of Michael Clarke as a captain because Michael Clarke was his closest buddy in the team. So Shane Warne has his strong likes and dislikes.
Shane Warne, okay, I love Shane Warne. I think when he talks cricket and not other rubbish on TV,
At
I
least he's
think
not
he's
boring.
yeah, he's pretty, and he's a decent analyst, and I like that he
True.
gives it back to the Englishmen whenever the India is playing in England, they call Warne as an expert commentator. The problem is in some of his likes and dislikes, he's like a man child. Like उसको नहीं पसंद है ना, like ला जा मेरी कुट्टी. Now अब तू जो भी करे, I will when I mean, I don't know if you guys were watching when Joss Butler was out. I was watching it live, and Warren had just spent about 25 minutes nicely bashing. Like, this is where Australia struggled. Stark and Lyon weren't that good against India last summer, blah, blah, blah. And then Stark was an absolute peach to get out Joss Butler, and they're like, oh yeah, well, Mitchell Stark, and then he just moves on to the other things, right? Like he just can't. And if Pat Cummins had bowled the same thing, which I think Pat Cummins is a better bowler than Mitchell Stark, but Mitchell Stark isn't some
Absolutely.
street bumpkin who's bowling, right? He's a brilliant bowler too. Pat Cummins, he would have found about 14 adjectives to describe his or whatever, how much ever vocabulary he can cobble up at that time. He would have thing to praise Pat Cummins. So it's. But you know who's the best commentator? I don't know which coverage you guys get back home, Kushal. If you get
Fox.
the Fox
इधर अभी
Sports,
Fox आ रही है.
the best commentator in that room is Isha Guha. She is outstanding, and to some extent, Kerry O'Keefe. Like Baki, the others are all like, you know, Mark Waugh. They are all like Akbar's Navaratna praising the Australian cricket team. Like they just pander. So I can't wait for Michael Vaughan to get there as a commentator. I have a lot of problems with the whole Yorkshire thing, but as an analyst, he gives it back to the Aussies.
Yeah. So let's talk about this series now. Obviously, matlab, I'm not going to waste our time discussing England's chances. I'll just come straight to the point. Final Australia, 4-0 Australia, 3-0 Australia. क्या आने वाला है नवनीत?
Remember,
I think I think last three times, at least last couple of times when England have played in Australia, in 2013 they were blanked out 5-0. This time as well, I think Australia will win the series. It'll be either three, it'll be either 4-1 or it'll be either 4-1 or 5-0 to Australia. That's what I feel.
I mean, I think the only way England has a chance is if they show what Josh Butler did. If they do what Josh Butler did, they have to come out swinging. If you saw all the first 4 wickets, they went out using like trying to get defensive sort of shots. What England will be very happy to see is how Haseeb Hameed applied himself yesterday. He looked very fluent the time he was there. I just don't think Rory Burns should be opening with him. But world cricket में ये घुस गया है कि left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. Yeah, you pick two best players, which in my opinion are Zach Crawley and Haseeb Hameed to open the batting. And then you have Malan at 3, Root at 4, Stokes at 5, and Butler at 6. There is another sort of thing I would do. I would almost swap Butler and Stokes, keep Josh Butler at 5, and try to, you know, get him to push the run scoring. So even if you're 50 for 3, Butler comes and hits a quick fire 35, and suddenly you're 105 for 3, and the game looks very different, right? So that's what. I don't think it'll be 4-1 to Australia. I think it'll be either 3-1 to Australia, or there is a chance of it being 2-all. The reason I say it's 2-all is this Australian lineup cannot play spin well. They just cannot, right? I mean, they struggled, except for Steve Smith, they cannot. And Steve Smith will struggle against James Anderson. So by the SCG test match, if England is 2-1, this is not to suggest that England can play spin, but I just don't think, I think Jack Leach in this form is a better bowler than Nathan Lyon when the ball is turning square. You saw that in India also. He actually managed to trouble quite a few Indian batsmen, right? So if the game happens to be in SCG and Australia is 2-1, and England like manages to put in like a 350 or a 400 run first inning score, England has a chance. But this is if Josh Butler and Ben Stokes and Joe Root have to fire with the bat, and they have to stop doing this nonsense about rotating players. James Anderson on a green top, man, when it was swinging, first of all, what the hell are you doing asking like batting first when it was overcast? And what the hell are you doing dropping James Anderson? Just think of it, if James Anderson was swinging the ball and if Australia was 20 for 4, you know, even if he would not play in Adelaide, look at the England confidence level that would have gone up. So I don't know. It almost like, this is why I hate like leaning towards England in the Ashes, because Australia just turns up to play in these big games and England is like, you know, how India was in the 90s. Hamari misery dur karo my baap types.
Yeah, see, the thing is, from what I remember, since 2006, there has not been a single test match until this one where either a James Anderson or a Stuart Broad have not played a test match. This is the first time. Stuart Broad to theek tha. I don't know what the hell they are thinking. Anderson ko ye log ne ye test match mein nahi liya. I just think England
No,
seems
Broad
to be
also.
making these.
No, I think it has to be. If Anderson should have been dropped, Broad should have been picked. I mean, you cannot. I mean, it was swinging all over the place in Gabba. Like, did they forget Shardul Thakur and Natarajan took wickets at the Gabba, what, 10 months ago? And that was at the heart of the summer. Abhi Australian summer shuru nahi hua. So it
यार
swings
उसने
a lot more
बैटिंग
in
क्यों
November
सिलेक्ट
than it does.
की? सबसे बड़ा पॉइंट है उसने बैटिंग क्यों सिलेक्ट की नवनीत? डोंट यू थिंक दे शुड हैव बोल्ड फर्स्ट?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. And the thing is, see, I understand that England now wants to use James Anderson very sparsely and very, very sparsely. But आपका जो टेस्ट सीरीज का फर्स्ट टेस्ट मैच है, going into the first test match of a series, especially overseas, James Anderson should have been in the playing 11. This is utterly preposterous and absolutely inane decision. Now, don't forget, James Anderson, even when James Anderson came to India, earlier this year, he was absolutely sensational. And that one spell he bowled was simply unplayable. So even on Indian pitches, James Anderson is still very potent. So not playing him in Australia, that also in the first test match, because losing or winning the first test match usually sets the tone for the entire series. Now this is an absolutely preposterous decision. James Anderson still has a lot of zing and nip in his bowling, and he should have been in the playing 11. No questions asked at all.
Yeah, I
I,
think
I am happy. Sorry, just to add one quick point, Kushal. I'm very happy though they picked Jack Leach and didn't go with four fast bowlers, because I think in Australia, unlike England, the ball does spin. In whatever pitch you go, the ball will spin a little bit. I mean, unless you're in Perth, of course, but even there you have the bounce. So you need that one spin option to provide sort of a nice relief and exploit the rough marks that were created by Mitchell Stark.
yeah, just to add 2-3 facts to this game. By the way, Pat Cummins becomes the fourth person to pick a 5-wicket haul as a captain in their first test. The ones before him were C.A. Smith, England versus South Africa, Port Elizabeth, 1889. G.O.B. Allen, England versus India, Lords, 1936. Imran Khan, Pakistan versus England, Birmingham, 1982. And now Pat Cummins, Australia versus England, Brisbane, 2021. But just Australians बहुत साले, मतलब कितना वो लोग गियर्ड इन होते हैं एशेज के लिए. ये तुम लोग ने देखा क्वींसलैंड पुलिस ने ट्वीट किया, क्वींसलैंड पुलिस आर
I
लॉन्चिंग एन
saw.
इन्वेस्टिगेशन इनटू अ ग्रुप impersonating a test batting order at the Gabba. I mean,
No, look at the
उनकी
top one. No,
पुलिस भी
Kushal,
लेती है.
scroll up. Show that tweet again and scroll up to the first tweet. The first tweet is even funnier.
BNE traffic
Like,
update, a large
because
crowd of first tests, so plan your comings and goings. Would we lion if we said there'll be nothing but
that's
green lights in Gabba? Don't say we didn't warn her. It's मतलब उनकी पुलिस भी लेती है.
yeah, it's brilliant. It's and not just that. Like, if the whole atmosphere, right? Like, I forget which person said it. I was watching Sky Sports, and Hussein and Atherton were saying it's a pity that Hussein and Atherton are not commenting on the series. I think Michael Atherton should be there in the commentary box. But they said that 3 or 4 players, English players, were there out for dinner, and some Australian crowd spotted and they sledged them in the restaurant. So they're like, England doesn't realize that they are actually going up against a whole different country. And people forget the population of Australia is half of that of England, right? So it's not like it's a more populous country and things like that. So in terms of numerics things, England actually outnumbers Australia but Australia just is so ready for the Ashes. They are just so ready. Or देते हैं, मतलब दबा के देते हैं. And the reason why they love watching India Australia is because India gives it back now.
Yeah. So, okay, let us take one question and then we'll discuss that racism saga and wrap it up. So, somebody has asked, why do you think they postponed the T20 series in South Africa instead of ODIs, given that the T20 World Cup is next year while the ODI World Cup is I just think they wanted to accommodate for the test matches and there is no specific reason. I think they just picked one and they did not want to do things. I think there was no real decision making behind this.
Yeah.
There was no press conference or any explanation given from anyone. They just picked one and they were like, I guess their logic must be हम लोग वर्ल्ड कप के पहले ये T20 गेम्स खेलेंगे तो बेटर है, अभी जितने T20s को पोस्टपोन कर सकते हैं वो करेंगे. I think that was the reason.
And one funny quip to that is, do you think that IPL is not adequate preparation for a world?
Yeah, वही तो. I think IPL के भी हैं तो उनको कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
2 महीने को वही करना है. So I am actually happy that they postponed T20s because मैं देख के पक चुका हूँ T20s अब. Like,
Okay, so
Let's
now
have some good old fashioned
let us
oranges.
end today's discussion with this story, which has been doing the row, and Aadit just mentioned it. So basically, Yorkshire racism row tha. The player's name was Azim Rafiq, who had started with the whole thing that he was accusing others of racism, institutional racism and bullying against the English county, and accused the 47-year-old Vaughan of telling a group of Asian players, including Rafiq in 2009, that, quotes, too many of you lot, we need to do something about it, was the exact words that he used. And then there was another article where Adil Rashid, basically, who is, you know, Adil Rashid was confirming what Michael Vaughan,
Hmm. Hmm.
said about that.
Said.
So that was also there. Adil Rashid had said Michael Vaughan ne ye bola hua hai. Now I want to share all the information and then we'll just have quick comments on this. By the way, कि
Hmm.
ये जो हमारे जिंदगी के सबसे प्यारे जो हैं, इनके भी थोड़े विचार देख लें अजीम रफीक के. ये अजीम रफीक
Hmm.
हैं, ठीक है. अजीम रफीक खुद
Hmm.
अपोलोजाइज करता है एंटी सेमेटिक मैसेजेस के लिए, और ये उनके एंटी सेमेटिक मैसेजेस हैं, ठीक है. क्या लिखा है?
Hmm. Hmm.
What she's gonna be like, I left my card back home, he's gonna props go, क्या है, I know that is wrong, gonna get ripped for that. Only Jews, haha, proper rip, bro. How wrong is that? Only Jews do that sort of shit. Okay.
Pathetic.
ये
Pathetic.
मतलब
It's
ये
one cannot
पूरा
justify
किस्सा
the
ही
other.
टट्टी है.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what Michael Vaughan said, if he said it, is reprehensible. It should not be encouraged and stuff, and there should be consequences for those statements if it's corroborated. He denies it. He denies the thing, and my opinion of him as an analyst is completely like is unrelated to this. I still believe he's a decent analyst and talks about the game and stuff. But if he said what he did, and if it's proven, then there should be consequences, no doubt about it. That's number one. Second, what BBC has to, if Azim Rafiq's thing came out, him apologizing about one thing does not like just wish it away. कि हाँ, उसने at least apologize. So yeah, I'm grateful that Azim Rafiq actually came out with what was going on in Yorkshire behind the scenes, and so to speak. And I think there has been a change also. The Yorkshire director of cricket has been fired and replaced by Darren Goff, if I'm not mistaken. ये भी पिछले एक आधा हफ्ते में हुआ. And hopefully there's a change in attitude. I know this cricketer is not going to talk about their time at Yorkshire, but I almost want to know what Sachin felt about his time at Yorkshire. He ostensibly loved it, and Yorkshire actually did not sign. He was the first international player to resign because they had that attitude. We will not sign people from outside of our region or our county. But Jeffrey Boycott, a very proud, bullish Yorkshireman, actually started this whole thing to get Sachin on board, and that's what has changed it and there. But if the attitudes in the country cricket club hasn't changed, I mean, they need a wake up call. The world is moving, and they should too. They don't need to stay in their white rose sort of thing. That's their white rose is their symbol, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yorkshire ka. But the issue here is also that we start focusing on one individual, one instance, and one thing rather than addressing this issue as a whole in the game in general. If the game is being plagued by this, what are they doing by just targeting this one
Look,
issue?
I don't know how else to say this. Is racism an issue? Yes, we should talk about it openly. But there is, I don't know how to say it, but with this whole Black Lives Matter thing, players kneeling and doing, there is too much of a performative aspect to it. I'm gonna say something that might piss people off. I think it's time people realize even brown people can be racist. And I know it sounds very unpopular. अभी गोरे की ठुकाई हो रही है तो गोरों को ठोको, मौका मत जाने दो, मारो मारो इसको मारो, kind of. I think there is a lot of piling on. I don't know why Azim Rafiq's anti-Semitism is less of a crime than what they faced. My point is very clear. Discrimination is bad. Human beings suck at some point of time. We are becoming better as a society again and again and again and again and again. we will go on becoming better. What happened in Yorkshire would not have come out if not for the performative aspect for Black Lives Matter. So in a way, Black Lives Matter can claim, hey, look, see, हमारा कुछ तो काम आया, Yorkshire का सागा बाहर आया हमारी वजह से. And also, there was this documentary of Mark Butcher. I don't know if you followed the documentary. There's this whole documentary also Mark Butcher ki aayi. I think it was a very painful experience. I was really saddened by watching it. Racism is an issue. Brown people have faced it. A lot of people have faced it. In South Africa, the complete
Um,
opposite of that is happening in the extreme sense, where now good, capable white players are not able to find a place in the South African side. What are you going to do about
yeah.
that?
Michael Holding said a very interesting thing that in India you don't have racism because racism by definition is one race against the other race, but their colorism does exist, and I tend to agree with him that it does exist colorism, and sort of what we are seeing in South Africa also against where some Indians are being targeted, by the population. Like there are many sort of news reports coming out is also sort of colorism or racism. I don't even want to call it reverse. It's racism, right? One race against the other. But within that, if there is colorism, then yeah, you have to absolutely.
यार
And
इंडिया में
Darren
फेयर
Sammy
एंड
said that.
लवली और फेयर एंड हैंडसम बिकता है यार.
No, and Darren
मतलब
Sammy said that ना कि मुझे ड्रेसिंग रूम में काला काला ऐसा कुछ कह के बुलाते थे, which is pathetic. And I'm quoting this, right? I mean, there is no way I'm endorsing this. I think it's pathetic if it was said,
ईशांत
but
शर्मा
this
और
is what
सबको
he said.
उसने एलेज किया था.
Yeah. So that is pathetic. Like if it was
Yes.
if that exactly was said. So you're right, Kushal. I think we are just all living in the moment where एक case आ गया तो सब टूट पड़े, herd के जैसे. But they are not addressing the
Pylon.
main issue at hand कि कुछ situations problematic है हमारी society में भी.
Okay, चलिए एक last question लेते हैं. Sorry about that. I think Navneet's internet had gone caboose, but एक last question लेते हैं, Aadit, and then we'll wrap it up. How do you look at India's fixture in the World Test Championship? Some analysts feel that other teams have easier away series as compared to India. I don't think so. I think India is doing the right thing. South Africa this is our best chance to win in South Africa. I think nothing better can come out of it. What do you guys think?
I mean, I completely agree. And if India has a different draw in the World Test Championship, then in a strange way we are to be blamed for that. Because if we refuse to play against certain countries, I have said this on this show and on many shows that if I agree with the Indian government's decision to oppose Pakistan in bilateral cricket till the terrorism issue is resolved. But when you're playing a World Test Championship, then the same rules apply what you do for World Cups. You play every country that's on there, and if Pakistan is on there, you play with them 2 test matches. Just because India will not play, ICC has come up with this strange rule where each country does not play 2 countries in a 2-year cycle, which is kind of crazy. You play all the team, और अगर आपको सारी teams को नहीं खेलना 2 साल में accommodate नहीं होता, you take it to a 3-year cycle. And you have like five teams home, 5 teams away, and every 3 years it rotates the different. That is the only way to do this, because that. So if we do find that it's unfair, I think it's a problem of India's own doing.
Cool. Navneet?
I completely agree with Adit. And to answer your question, yes, this is India's best chance to win a test series in South Africa. South Africa is the only country in which we have not won a test series as yet. And just like 2018 was the best chance for India to win the test series in Australia, India went ahead and won a couple of test series in Australia. Before 2018, India had not won a test series even in Australia. So this time, yes, on papers, Indian team is looking far more formidable than their South African counterparts. But yeah, I mean, I'll still be a little wary because in South African conditions, Team India has mostly flattered to deceive. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And yes, I mean, this is perhaps the first time I'm seeing that India is going to South Africa as favorites to win the Test series. No matter, even when our team was super strong in mid 2000s, that Saurav Ganguly team and after MS Dhoni team, and we managed to draw a couple of Test series in South Africa, but we couldn't clinch it. And in 2006 was particularly very distressing. We had won the first test match and we lost the 2 test matches. And in one of the test matches, India lost like 8 wickets in one session and that completely, did India in. So this time I'm
Yeah.
hopeful that India will win the test series in South Africa and end their drought there.
Actually, Kushal, can I make a 10-second point? One very interesting thing is because of Brexit, these Kolpak players have returned. So that also means a return of Dwayne Olivier, who was one of the best fast bowlers of South Africa in the 5 or 6 test
True.
matches. So I'm very happy for South Africa cricket. As an Indian cricket fan, I'm terrified that now the good fast bowlers of South Africa have written Kyle Abbott, Dwayne Olivier and stuff. But for South Africa cricket, this is great news. If they get their quota system things sorted out, and make sure that deserving cricketers are not sitting out just because of some quota situation and so forth. And I mean, that is something I won't comment on because that is based on the country's internal politics. And I like at some point we don't deserve like to talk about it. But it's great news for world cricket that such phenomenal talent is back.
No, so what we'll do is in the next month cricket podcast, now we'll take the South Africa quota issue up and the racism issue up in a slightly more
Sure.
detailed manner, and we'll touch upon it. We'll talk about the South African race report also. There has been a commission that has there are a lot of reports that have come out and horrendous and horrifying stories that unfortunately players of African descent have faced. So we need to take racism very seriously, and the sport has to deal with it. But at the same time, is quota the right answer for that with the destruction of a cricket team? So we'll have a open-minded discussion about that.
Sure.
We'll wrap today's discussion, guys. As always, Navneet and Aadit, pleasure talking to you, and we'll be back next month with another discussion, guys. The cricket now is going to be amazing. You have the Ashes. India and South Africa starts also this month. I think on the Boxing Day test match starts on the 26th, and the timing of South Africa is perfect. दोपहर को चालू होता है, शाम तक चलता है, रात तक चलता है. इंडिया के लिए परफेक्ट है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया के लिए थोड़ा उठना पड़ता है. This is a great calendar for test match cricket. So as always, please keep watching cricket. Please keep watching the Cārvāka podcast. Support it. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Become a member. Follow Aadit and Navneet on Twitter and all the other social media platforms. And I will go and read Navneet's work on Yahoo. Navneet writes regularly on Yahoo too. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye bye.